Hey guys, welcome back to wemetatacme. I'm so excited to be here with the CEO of ParentData, Emily Oster.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I can't believe this. I have a dating podcast and we're starting to talk more about motherhood. And I swear in my vision board, I was like, who's the only person I want to talk to about motherhood? And it's you. We start every episode with, and I know this is not your usual question, but what is your favorite romantic gesture? And this is like for your spouse to do for you.
For my spouse to do. Oh my God. This my spouse is wonderful and I love him very much. We're not like really a romantic gesture kind of.
But it doesn't have to be. It could be like when he puts the lid down or when he like changes the soap dispenser, you know?
Yeah, I think it is when he turns all the lights off because I leave all the lights on and he doesn't complain. He just turns them all off.
I love that.
It's like the thing about marriage when you're married a long time where you like learn the things that you need to do that like you do that are just like your spouse. You think like, why can't you turn the lights off? But then it's like, well, I don't know. I just can't.
Right. And then you just
like do it.
You compliment them in that way.
Exactly.
I did a podcast with Dan Savage once. Do you know who that is?
Sure.
He's great. And his whole thing with this subject was you pay the price to ride the ride. So you know that your partner doesn't close cabinets.
Yeah.
You don't complain about it. You just close the cabinets.
Totally.
And that's it. Like
my husband's also really good at the dishwasher. I should probably mention that in case he listens to this. He's so good at loading the dishwasher.
Loading it. Okay. Does he unload it though?
No, we unload it together.
Okay.
But he's so good at loading it. And when I have to load it, it's like
there's always one.
There's always one. Somebody told me once, like one in every relationship, there's one person who loads the dishwasher like a Swiss engineer, and one person who loads it like a raccoon on meth. And
it's true.
I'm the second one.
It's true. They also say there's one person who loves olives and one person who hates, but I don't agree with that one because we both love them.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, hold on. Okay, much better. It is hot out today.
Yeah.
And in here. Okay. So the first time I ever saw you, we didn't get to meet, but was at a Peoplehood event when Julie Rice was interviewing you. And I loved what you said. You said something about choosing to not, and I don't know that you always do this, but you said it in this moment, that you don't necessarily attend kids' birthdays on the weekends.
Right.
Because the weekends are for your family.
Yes.
And you guys work and like that's your time. And I loved that. And I wasn't even a mom yet. I think I was pregnant at the time. And I wrote that down. And I went home and I was like, when we're parents, we don't have to my husband, I'm like, we don't have to go to kids' birthdays. And he's like, okay, honey, like we don't even have a baby yet. But I thought that was really cool. How did you come to that decision? And how do you kind of deal with the backlash of friends being like, why didn't you come?
So, for us, okay, so one of my sort of general principles, which I was probably espousing when I was talking about this, is that you have to like decide for your family what are the things that are important. And one way to do that is to think like big picture, like what are our values and so on. And another is just to be like, what do we want our days and weekends to look like? Because, if you're not happy with like Saturday and Sunday every week or with Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, like you won't be happy. And for our family, this idea of like prioritizing some time that the four of us can spend together that is family time, like that's very central. And like that's like not everybody's thing, but like that's our thing. And once we have that, it sort of rules out many other things. So it's not that I'm like categorically opposed to the concept of a birthday party. And like if there were a Sunday afternoon birthday party, which is a time in which like we don't generally do things as a family, I would be happy to let my kid go if they wanted. But if the birthday party is Sunday morning, which is a time that like we like to go hiking or do other stuff together, it's just no. And I think for me, like that kind of simplicity is so important. It's just like we decided a thing that was important and this other thing is less important because we said this first thing was the most important thing. And then, it turns out if you just tell people I can't come, it's basically fine.
Yeah.
Like
anything really.
Just anything. You're just like, I'm sorry, I can't do that. Don't be like, well, I can't do it because we prioritize family. They're like, don't explain. Like, I'm so sorry that doesn't work for me.
By the way, that should apply
This is
to
how you should
everything.
everything. This is how you should say. Don't
Everything.
explain.
A wedding.
I'm so sorry
you're
I can't.
attending,
I'm so sorry I can't come.
Can't make it. Here's a
sorry.
gift. Whatever.
Yeah.
You know.
One of the things I tell my teenager all the time is people worry a lot, like, what are these other people going to think? Like, when they think about me, and it turns out a good organizing principle of the world is people are just thinking about themselves. They're not thinking about you. And so when you say, I can't come to this, they're not like, oh, why can't you come? Is it because of something about your values? They're just like, oh, okay, I'm going to go back to thinking about myself.
Yeah, exactly.
That's very freeing.
Very freeing. I love that. And so you have 2 kids.
2 kids.
A boy and a girl?
A boy and a girl. Older girl, younger boy.
Okay. And did you always see yourself having a family? And by the way, I guess let's back up a little bit. You met your husband when you were studying?
We met in undergrad. Yeah. We met my junior year as in college.
Love it. Yeah. And how did you maintain that relationship? We were babies. I mean, you've grown so much.
Yeah. It's interesting because I feel like there's like the kind of relationship where you like are fully formed adults and then you like meet each other and you find that you are compatible. And then there's the kind of relationship where you like meet when you're a kid and then you sort of grow up with the person. And for us, it has worked great. But of course, we are totally different. Like in some ways very similar, but in other ways like totally different people than we were. And I think that there's a lot of joy and value in kind of that growing together if you can make it work.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like having like a few relationships in one kind of.
It is. It's like having a few relationships in one and sort of looking at these different stages of, like we were doing nothing. We were like very focused on our jobs. Then we had a family and like, but you sort of, the person becomes a totally different person.
Yeah. Yeah. And you always wanted kids.
I think we both always wanted kids.
You both always wanted kids. And how did you come to that decision? I know it's like, it's not even something that you can really, for me, it was just so natural. Like I didn't ever want to explain, but now I have friends who are coming to the opposite decision and are asking me, how do I know? How do I know? And I'm having to come up with an answer that I don't even know if really makes sense.
I'm not sure I have an answer. I mean, I always knew like this was something I just had always known it was something I wanted, like assumed that it was something that we would do or try to do. And I don't think it ever, like we had many conversations about what is the right timing for kids and where should we be in our lives to do that, but we never had a conversation even before we got married and we were younger about the idea of not having a family. It wasn't like, are you a person who wanted kids? It was just always like that was something we knew was going to be something at least we'd try to do.
Yeah. And so your one is 13, the other is 9.
Yes.
Did you ever have a thought about any sort of age gap? And by the way, I hate this question as someone who struggles with fertility. Right. It's like, and it's the new like, oh, when are you guys gonna have a baby? Like when, whatever. So, but I think that for people who don't struggle with it, they do have the luxury of having that decision.
Yeah. Yeah. So we were very sure we didn't want them 2 years apart. We had initially talked about having them 3 years apart. And then when it sort of came up on the time we would need to start trying, we were in the middle of like a total like epic professional meltdown for me. And so it was like, this is not a time. We are equipped to like add another person to the chaos that we are currently dealing with. And so we waited and then it ended up that 4 years was the amount of time that we had.
What is a career meltdown look like for someone as successful as you?
I was up for tenure and I got turned down for tenure and then we had to find like new jobs. Yeah. And when you are 2 academics, so with my non-CEO hat on, I'm a professor, and when you are both professors, you like it's hard to find 2 jobs together. And so we were like flying around the country and like trying to get jobs that were together, and the circumstances under which I had been turned down for tenure were not very good. It was it was very stressful.
Yeah, that sounds stressful for sure.
It was not the time in which you want to be like trying to have sex to,
Yeah. Why? I get that.
For procreation anyway. It's more just relief sex.
To a means to an end. Why not 2 years? Like, why were you so anti?
I don't know. I think we just felt like it was too, like it was too I don't know. I mean, I think part of this is the same answer I would give to like, how did you know you wanted kids? Or how
Yeah.
did you know you wanted 2 kids? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It just didn't feel like that felt
Right.
too fast.
Right. It was just
And it
like
was just
pulse
like,
check. No.
Pulse
not
check,
yet.
no. Like
Mhm.
we're not, I don't know. We're not, it just didn't feel like we just weren't ready.
Yeah. As 2 academic parents, like what is something that you do that you feel like is very unique to you and your husband with your kids that, you know, like a Joe Schmo who's not super academic would do? You know what I'm saying?
So
Like-
I think the ways in which we're the weirdest are more like businessy than academic-y. So I'll give you the weirdest example, which is like when we want to talk to one of our kids about something, we put it on we schedule a Google Calendar meeting.
Yeah.
And we'll like send a meeting invite to the kid and be like, you know, this, like, what's a good time? And there'll be like an agenda. And then they have to come to the meeting and like discuss it with us.
That's
on the
amazing.
agenda,
But what
which is,
about
like,
before they had phones?
well, they've always had a calendar.
Okay.
And then, you know, they can check their calendar.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
the
yeah.
Google, the sort of like schedule Google Calendar meeting, I think starts like around like 7 or 8.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, you just gotta, like, get them in the
So-
but we're not very like the sort of academic parent thing where people are like, are you very intense about this? Like, we're not like super intense in that.
Yeah.
We're not very intense on that dimension.
That's so funny though, because I feel like one of them is gonna like be asked for a play date and they'll be like, oh yeah, will you send a calendar invite?
Right. Totally. Yes.
That's incredible. What were I know it's you and I were just talking before we started recording about how you don't remember anything from when your kids are babies. But from what you remember, what were your sleep habits with your kids early on?
So my kids from almost the very beginning slept in their own room because that was the way that we could get some sleep, and we had a baby monitor, and then we eventually sleep trained them in their own room.
Why do you think sleep training is so controversial? I sleep trained. by the
Yeah,
way.
no, I mean, I spend a lot of time talking about how the data suggests, et cetera, that it's completely fine and there's no like, you know, that whatever, that the data suggests it's fine. Why do I think it's so controversial? I mean, partly I think it is like hard to listen to your baby cry, and I can see the instinct to think that like that would be a problem, even though the data says it's not. I also think like many of these things in parenting, when you do something, you want it to be right, and you like want it to be so right that it's right for everybody.
Mm.
And just saying like, you know, I didn't do this because it wasn't right for me, but it might be right for you. Like that's somehow very hard. And then I think that there's this like thing that happens on social media where the like most extreme statement about something, you know, sleep train ruins your child forever. Like that's a very popular social media. That's going to get way more views than something that's like a sort of nuanced take on kind of how data looks. And so I think the algorithm kind of like values this, and then that feeds the whole.
Yeah, I
thing.
feel like the people who come for people who sleep train on the internet are such an opinionated bunch, and
Yeah.
I feel like they're doing it almost because they know that not that it's not right. You know what I mean? It's just like they're dying to get their voice in there, but you're not seeing people on the internet who sleep train yelling at people who don't.
So I think what's so interesting, yes, I think that's true. I think this thing where somebody comes at you and they're like, you know, you ruined your baby, and like that doesn't happen on the other side. I think what's interesting is people will sometimes come to me and they'll say like, my pediatrician is really pushing me to do this, and they're telling me like I have to do it, and I'm really not comfortable with it. And I also don't think that's good. Like I think if something else is working for you, like okay, it's, you know, okay. So I do think people feel that pressure, but it's not the pressure from like people. It's not the pressure, the internet commentator pressure, which I do find. I find it hard to understand why you can get so exercised about somebody else's choices.
Yeah.
But sort of like, why are you trying to make people feel bad?
I think it's a projection
Okay.
of sorts. I caught myself the other night at dinner, and I hope she's listening to this, and if she is, love you and shout out, because I'm calling myself out for this. A friend of mine is a newer mom, and she's going on her first flight with her daughter. And I was like, she was like, I'm nervous, you know, this, that. And I was like, well, what time did you book? And she's like, 11. And I was like, 11? Like, you have to book the first flight out in the morning. You know, what if you get delayed and this and that? And she was like, oh no, like I didn't think about that. And then after, I was like, why the fuck did I say that?
You
Like,
thought I
why was I
went.
judging her flight time choice? That's crazy of me.
So I think one of the when I wrote Crib Sheet, which is my book about like early parenting, so much of what's in that book is like, look, here are all these like super controversial things. And in fact, there are like many good choices. And there's really only sort of small pluses and minuses in different directions. So like try to find the thing that works for you. And one of the byproducts of that is I found myself trying so much harder not to give people advice, because people will be like, what should I do about this? And I'll be like, well, I don't like, there are many good choices, and some of it is about like what works for you. And so I've like tried to like dial down this very natural instinct, which is to be like, well, I did it this way, and let me explain to you, like, you always get the first flight in the morning.
Yeah, but I'm not right necessarily.
No,
I mean, listen, like if you're someone who wants to get places early and not get delayed, but who cares,
Yeah.
And I was like, I need to be actively telling myself to shut up when my friends who are newer parents, because I'm like, I have 3 months on her, 6 months. Like,
Right.
it's not. I'm not a pro.
You
I've been on one more flight than
you've
she
been on
has.
one additional
Like,
flight.
it's ridiculous. Also, so, okay, because you sleep trained, I'm curious, did you nap train as well? Did you care about naps, if you remember correctly?
What I recall, and it has been a while, is that it is much, much more difficult to nap train your
Yeah.
kid than sleep train, in part because like it's just a much shorter time period. And so like they could easily not nap at all. And so the kids eventually did nap reasonably well, but I do not remember a kind of like targeted nap training structure the way we sleep trained. I will say we have maintained quiet time as like a general thing that one should have indefinitely.
Meaning, like, sometimes your kids just hang out in their room and don't speak.
After lunch, generally, there's the idea that like people should be on their own for an hour, listening to audiobooks, being in their room, doing something.
Yeah, I love
You
that.
should always have quiet time.
Well, I think, and I don't have the, anything to back this up, but I think I love when my son plays by himself. I think it's the best.
Yes.
I really think it's the best. And my husband is that dad who's like always sitting and doing things with him. And sometimes I feel bad because I'm not doing that, but I'm like, but he's getting this solo play that actually means so much more to him. And it's not like I never do that. I'm just not needing to be on him.
But here's what I think is so interesting about what you just said, that you are finding that in order to defend something which you enjoy, which is like you're doing something, he's doing something, that's something you like, you have to be like, oh, it's because it's good for him. Why can't you just be like, this is the parenting that works for me?
Yeah.
I like it and he seems fine.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be better for him.
No.
It could be just the same.
Totally.
And if it's better for you, then that's great.
Totally. Yeah, no, my son also doesn't really like he'll have good days and bad days when it comes to eating, but his best eating is when he's watching Miss Rachel.
Yeah.
And
Who
so
doesn't love Miss Rachel?
I love, and by the way, I didn't know she lived in New York City. I'm like, maybe we could run into her on the street. Oh my God, we'd freak out. So I was posting, the meals that I was giving my son, and a bunch of moms were in my DMs being like, oh my God, does he eat the whole thing? And I'm like, yeah, watching Miss Rachel. And they're like, oh my God, thank God you said that because, I feel so bad. And I'm like, well, duh. Like, you think these kids are just like sitting? I mean, some kids obviously are more talented at eating than others, perhaps. But I think that's a given. I mean, it should be talked about it more, that you could do whatever works.
Yes. You should do the things that work.
Yeah. Yeah. So I wonder, you guys are, okay, going back to when you had younger kids, were you the parents who, if you had, your sister's son's bris or whatever during your kid's nap time, like, well, that's a bad example, but, something that you had to do during your kid's nap time, are you not going because, like, are you go with the flow, or are you?
No. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
It's like, no, I am not go with the flow.
Okay, that makes me feel so much better.
And particularly around sleep. Like, we are the people who would be like, our kid is in bed or in nap, like during the hours of and that is it. We were not flexible. In fact, I remember one, and like, the thing is, if your kid falls asleep in the car because you haven't made it home for nap time, it ruins everything.
No, it's terrible.
Because they nap for like 2 minutes. So I remember this one car trip on like a vacation where we had the 2 kids, and my daughter was like maybe 6, and my son was like 2. So like maybe 18 months. And so we wanted him to stay up so he would go for the nap. And it was like, he was a person, like every baby likes to sleep in the car. And and this isn't maybe my best parenting moment. We had our daughter putting water in her mouth and spitting it in his face to keep him awake. So he would say he
That's
did.
amazing. By any means necessary.
Like by any means necessary.
Yeah.
Like you cannot fall asleep in the car.
No, it's crazy the things that I've done. I mean, I'm shoving Cheerios in his mouth,
Right.
putting on Miss Rachel. Like I will do anything to keep him awake, which is so ironic because, in other moments you'll do anything to get them to sleep and it won't work, but it is what it is, Okay, these are a bunch of questions that came in from other people who moms and moms to be. Let's tackle the pregnancy ones first. I know you've talked about these topics so many times, but just to clear the air here, drinking while pregnant, what are our thoughts?
Outside of the first trimester, occasional drink, don't get sloshed, not more than one at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Really no evidence to suggest that that's problematic.
Mm-hmm. And drinking while breastfeeding.
Drinking while breastfeeding is fine. I mean, you again, like if you get really drunk, it's gonna be very hard to parent. So be careful with that. But with breastfeeding, even if you drank like quite a lot, like 4 shots of tequila in an hour, which would really impair your general functioning, the level of alcohol in your breast milk would be like about what it is in a glass of orange juice or something. And so if you want to have some alcohol while breastfeeding, it's fine. And if you're like, I just, for whatever reason, like, even though I hear you, I absolutely do not want to do that, it's about 2 hours per drink. So breastfeed, drink, wait 2 hours, then it's out. It doesn't like stay. I think people have this impression like a drink and it like sort of stays in the breast milk, but that's not how it works.
And what about Botox while pregnant?
So there's no evidence to suggest that, okay, let me put it this differently. When you do Botox in your face, there is a botulism toxin. That's the thing you would worry about, but it stays in your face. And in fact, there are people who have gotten botulism poisoning, not from Botox, but from some other, like, from you can get botulism from like cans and stuff. It's not common. But anyway, there have been some people who got that and the baby's fine. So there's like really no reason to think that Botox in pregnancy would be a problem at all. Many providers will not give you Botox during pregnancy.
What about during breastfeeding?
It's fine during breastfeeding. Same thing. Like, no, it really does not pass in the breast milk at detectable levels.
Okay. I'm definitely doing it.
Okay.
God willing, next time.
I cannot imagine shooting Botox. Like, I am afraid of needles in my face. Yes.
Well, you don't need to do it.
Well, this is the thing. I think there is this is probably the most popular Instagram question I get is like, can I have Botox at these different, I would say I get it every single week, even though I answer it kind of often. And I think it is the 10-year age gap between me and many of the people who are asking me this. I don't know. Somehow Botox is not for me.
Yeah, but you're young.
45.
That's young.
The people who are asking me about the Botox, definitely.
Oh, well, people are getting it at like 20.
People get a lot
of not okay.
Yeah.
I only started when I was 30. But which is a good age, I feel. No, I love it. It's my only thing.
It's your thing, yeah.
Like it can be a slippery slope if you do the other things. But I feel like Botox is just like breathing for a New Yorker like myself.
I know. Yeah. I mean, I'm not considering it because I don't like the idea of needles in my face.
No, I get it. Are you scared of needles, like generally?
I'm not scared of needles generally. Yeah. I just, like I'll have acupuncture, I guess. I don't know. There's like, I think I just like didn't get into it and now I feel like it's too late.
I get it. But it's never too late. It's never too late.
I mean, we'll see. My husband is very
say never.
Very opposed to the concept of Botox.
Yeah. My husband was too, and then he doesn't know the difference. You know what I mean?
Okay,
so
yeah. No, I'm not sure he would notice. That's fair.
Yeah. Is it a good idea to go into pregnancy blind? This person says, all the information out there scares me.
I think it's fine depending on your on the way that you're going to interact with this, I guess. I mean, I think there are people for whom like knowing more information and being like super prepared for everything is the way that they relax. Like, this is certainly true for me. Like knowing more about what's going on is a relaxing thing for how I process stuff I'm anxious about. But there are certainly many people who come into pregnancy who are just like, look, I just want you to tell me what to do. Like, I want to, like, I'm going to find a doctor that I like. I'm going to do the things that they say. And I think that's like completely fine. Find a good doctor, do the stuff they say. That's a totally reasonable way to approach this if that's the thing that is going to, help you feel relaxed about your
Right. If
about your
if the
pregnancy.
information scares you versus calms you.
Exactly.
Diet Coke during pregnancy.
Fine.
Thank God.
Thank God.
Thank God. And during breastfeeding, I know that's fine.
Yeah. It's really not a lot of stuff to avoid during breastfeeding.
Right. Okay, I think those are the only pregnancy questions. Oh, this one's a good one, actually. Top 3 tips for getting your relationship ready for a baby.
Oh, okay. So I have, maybe I only have 2. So the first is like having a baby is very hard on your relationship, and it is good to recognize that. So I think the hardest thing is when people expect, like, we're going to have this baby and it's going to, like, bring us together. And, like, it does in some sense. But also you are trying to do something very hard that you've never done before with this other person. You're super tired. And so, like, it isn't a great, like, it's not generally, like, the greatest moment for your relationship. We see that in the data. That's true. Basically anyone will tell you that. So in light of that, so I think being prepared for that is important. And the other thing I tell people is, you're going to tell from this that I'm a fan of meetings, but I think that you should schedule a meeting with your partner 2 weeks, like in advance of the birth. You should schedule it 2 weeks after the birth, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, like every couple of weeks. You should have like a 30-minute check-in meeting in which you talk about like how things are going, how we are feeling, like are there things that we want to change. You won't schedule that. You won't have that meeting if you haven't scheduled it. But I think for many people, if you like put that on your calendar, you say like, this is going to be a moment in which we can like connect and talk about stuff. There's more of a chance that you will surface some of the stuff that makes people angry and like causes, festering resentment.
Right. So not right before bed, like my specialty.
No, not the thing where you're like laying in your bed, like, by the way, here's the thing that pisses me off.
That's good to know. It's funny. Everyone who is smart that I respect has the meeting idea. Like, even just with relationship check-ins.
It's really good. Relationship check-ins.
And I'm always hearing it. And I'm like, that's in theory, that sounds so good. But in practice, I will not do it. I don't know why. I need to just do it, because everyone says it.
It's good. Yeah. I mean, if things are like, if everything's great, then like maybe you don't need that. But
I mean, anyone who has a baby saying everything is great.
Things could be improved.
Maybe the majority of things are great. Okay, this I'm actually very curious before we get into the other questions. I look at you and I'm like, you are so smart and you are so accomplished and sorry, okay. I just like have to, the facts are facts. And I'm thinking about, so I have a group of new mom friends and a few of us work and then a few are stay-at-home moms. And I love that we have the balance, right?
So awesome.
And then I think about someone like you and if you were in the group or whatever, in any group, and I'm like, when you're looking for mom friends or just friends in general, right? Are you looking for people who are on your level of intellect and like, all of those things? Or are you kind of like entertained by someone who's doing the total opposite kind of thing? You know what I'm saying?
Sort of. I mean, I have...
Like, would you be friends with someone who, I don't know, like worked in makeup or something?
Sure. I mean, I don't think that I have so first of all of my friends are like, I developed some good friendships in college and then a little bit in grad school, and that works for me. And so
no new friends.
I have new friends, but like, people who have a lot of context about your life are like important.
Yeah, of course.
But I mean, I find people super interesting. Like I think anytime someone cares about what they're doing and regardless of what that is that like, is that your job? Is that being home with your kids? Are you like, I'm very interested in how people think about the world. And so I have like a pretty high taste for, I don't know, hanging out with different kinds of people.
No, I also asked because my husband went to HBS and like he has a lot of friends who are very like highly intelligent. And sometimes I'm like, when I'm talking to these people and they're like, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I have this like, dating podcast. You know what I mean? I'm like, what are they thinking right now? You know, are they thinking I want to talk to this person that's so interesting? Or I actually want to talk to another tech startup founder because like this isn't, you know, something that I have the capacity for because like I don't take this person seriously. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I do. I mean, I think I do know about that. But I also think like it's not that interesting to talk to another. I mean, some of the tech startup founders are interesting, but like anytime somebody cares about what they do all day, like
Yeah.
there's something interesting
Mm-hmm.
in there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Even if
When I was like when I had my first when we had our first kid, I had a good friend who was at the time a stay-at-home mom, and I asked her about like sippy cups. And she wrote me this email that started with, "There is no perfect solution for the problem of infant and toddler hydration." And then like went on from there. And like for me, that's sort of like, you know, you're like she was in the moment, like so in it with like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm gonna kill it at this thing. And then she had
Uh-huh.
this like whole litany of like different sippy cup things. I don't know.
That's really funny. I love that. That shows that like she knows you too.
She knew me.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yes. She was just like me.
This is an age-old question. Fluoride or no fluoride toothpaste?
Fluoride toothpaste. Fluoride
Okay.
is very good at preventing cavities.
Mhm.
That's why we put it in our toothpaste and our municipal water
Even if they're
systems.
swallowing it?
They don't swallow very much of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Good to know. Should my husband go on a bachelor party when I'm 33 weeks pregnant?
I think that generally, sure. I mean, I think that if you ask this question for most people like 25 weeks pregnant, the answer would be like, of course, that's obvious. If you asked it at 38 weeks pregnant, no. 33 weeks pregnant for pregnancies that don't have any, threatened preterm labor or anything, like, the chance that you go into labor while they're gone is fairly small. There is a chart actually in Expecting Better where you could figure out the risk, like the chance that you go into labor that week. And I think at that time period, it's very small.
Yeah. My friend's husband was on a golf trip when she delivered early, and her mother-in-law had to take her to the hospital.
Oh dear. Okay.
Because her parents don't live here. But I think it was 35 weeks, so you're good.
Yeah,
you're in the clear.
I think that feels a bit late actually for a golf trip. But.
Yeah. How many C-sections can a person have, and does it really matter?
It does matter. So, in principle, you could have, like, of course, quite a lot. The thing that happens is after a C-section, there is a risk. There are some placental risks in a subsequent pregnancy. So there's many different placental complications, most extreme of which is when the placenta grows into the uterus, which can cause bleeding. It may necessitate the need for a hysterectomy. And the risk of those complications goes up a lot with each additional C-section. So generally, after 3 C-sections, most doctors will suggest that you not get pregnant again. And the reason I think this is like good for people to know is not to like freak them out, but I think it does influence, if you've had 1 C-section and you're thinking about, do I want to try for a vaginal birth with another pregnancy or do I want to have a repeat C-section? Some of that decision should rest in whether you want more kids after this.
Right.
Because the value to having a vaginal birth is higher if you think, I want to have 5 kids than if you are not planning.
Which kind of birth did you have?
I had 2 vaginal births.
Okay. Did you go to full term with both?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I was impatient.
I had 2 unmedicated vaginal births.
Wow.
So that's very hard to do if you're induced because
that is like amazing. At home?
Oh, Jesus Christ, no. No. At hospitals.
What made you make the choice to go unmedicated?
Curiosity, basically. Like nothing, like not really. This was not like a data-oriented choice. It was just I was curious to see what
if you could handle it.
Yeah. Like what would that be like?
Yeah. And you did it twice, so obviously
it's much easier the second time.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. The second time it's just like slips right out there.
Wow, that's very impressive. Okay. This is a question I really like. What messes kids up the most according to the data? Like, for example, if you can avoid doing this one thing to your kid, what is it?
Okay. So look, here is the thing. There are a few things that are really important for kids when they are little. having a stable place to sleep, having enough to eat, having some adults who love them, having some consistency, not being abused, maybe having some books around. If you are doing all of those things, you are already doing like almost everything. And so everything we talk about on top of that is like the effect sizes are just small. And so we sort of like, there's this tension where people are like the first 3 years are the most important. And that's true, because if you don't have those basic things, that's really, makes it really hard and is not setting kids up for success. And by the way, a lot of kids don't have that, and it's something we should think about. But once you have those things, then if we're like, okay, what, like, am I going to mess my kid up by sending them to daycare? Am I going to mess them up by like not rotating their toys? Or am I going to mess no, all of these other things are so much less important. And I think we have sold people this kind of message that like every interaction with your kid is an opportunity to mess them up forever. And that's just like not true. That's not the way that works.
Yeah. I was listening to a podcast where they talked about how you're going to mess your kid up regardless, or like, so the best that you could do is just do it a little less than like each generation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but also like, what does that mean, mess your, like definitely one day your kid is going to come and be like, this good thing didn't happen for me because of this thing you did, or here's like a mistake you made. And it's like, okay, like I thought I was doing it right.
Right. It's less that we're going to mess them up because it's obviously not intentional, and more that we're not perfect because we're human beings.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're not always going to have the perfect response. We're not always going to have the perfect even temperament. We're human.
It's just we're people.
Yeah. What do you think is the best age to start socialization for your child?
Kids over about, so one, I mean, it's an interesting question. Like, how would you look at that? And so I think like when we look at data on daycare and sort of what is the age at which we start seeing some positive impacts of like engagement in a child, it's like sort of 18 months-ish. So, some time around when they can start like playing interactively with other kids, there's probably some value. But plenty of people have their kids at home for many years and then they go to school and it's fine.
How do you feel about homeschooling?
Very hard to study homeschooling because the people who homeschool tend to be very different than people who don't homeschool. I think you lose some of the benefits of like learning to interact out in the world. Probably depends a bit on why you're homeschooling your kid.
Right. My husband's obsessed with the idea, but he's not actually. He just keeps saying it.
Does he want to do it?
He just keeps saying it so that I'll get mad.
Okay.
And like we just go back and he's like, but it would be so great.
And then what do you mean would it be great? For whom?
Exactly.
Who would it be great for?
What do you think, play-based or Montessori for preschool?
Okay, great. Either one. Pick the one closer to your house that's more convenient to get to. Better stroller parking.
What did you do?
I don't know. My kids went to a lot of different preschools.
Yeah.
I think they were mostly pretty play-based. I'm not sure they really had philosophies.
Yeah. Do you think providing data helps with parenting anxiety?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
I think for many people, this is a way into like helping them structure their decisions in a way that they're confident about. And I think for me, like if I can accomplish that with the data, I think that's really valuable, because I do think it can kind of take a decision that feels like emotional and fraught and confusing and be a grounding point to be like, okay, actually, here's the choice I have to make, and here's some evidence I could use to help me make that choice, and let me like then it's just like a little bit of an easier way to kind of take a breath and take the emotion out and make the decision something you feel more comfortable thinking about. I think it can also, some kinds of data can stress people out, so people like to collect data on their babies. And I think that's like, for some people, that's very relaxing and gives them an illusion of control. And for some people, it just totally stresses them out.
Yeah. My husband loves to collect data.
Sure.
And something that he is obsessed with that I want you to give your opinion on, because I have a feeling that you're going to say what I'm hoping that you're going to say. So our son is sleeping through the night, which after I say this, he won't be, because that's what happens.
That's what happens.
But his naps are not great. They're like, 30 minutes total of nap during the day, sometimes 45, sometimes an hour and 10 minutes. My husband thinks that he's not going to be able to be like as smart as other kids because he's not getting enough nap time during the day. He sleeps through the night almost 12, 13 hours.
That's fine. There's a wide range in the amount of sleep that kids get, and this sort of consolidated nighttime sleep is like the most important of the sleep.
Right.
And for a kid your kid's age, if you're adding 12 or 13 hours of sleep plus a little bit of napping in the day, that's well within the normal range
Right.
of an appropriate amount of sleep. Now, if you told me my kid seems super tired, he's constantly rubbing his eyes, he's unable to focus at his, school or whatever he's doing during the day, that would be one thing, but certainly well within the normal
Okay.
range
Yeah,
of
he's like, his
sleep.
brain is not going to develop. This person asked, how do you talk about using a surrogate without feeling judged? And do you have any advice on surrogacy generally?
So we have a new section of ParentData, which is about trying to conceive. And one of the sort of parts of that talks a lot about conception, about sort of family building if you are doing it in various non-traditional ways, including surrogacies. And so one thing is I would tell this person, like, we have a bunch of really helpful, I think, resources there and discussions. Like everything, if you tell people what you are doing, they will share their feelings, and sometimes you will feel judged. And I think some of this is just about figuring out, like, what is your canned response if you
Mhm.
feel like someone's response is not what you like. Like, I think it's often helpful to practice. So somebody is going to say, oh my God, I would never use a surrogate. Like, are you, whatever it is. And just something that you have canned. Like, I'm surprised you would say something like that.
Yeah.
And then, like, just whatever is the line,
Ooh,
have
that's
the
good.
line, and then just, like, stop talking about it.
Mhm.
Because you can't control the crazy things other people will
Right.
say and the ways in which they're processing their own stuff.
Mhm.
I don't know. Just reminding yourself, like, that's their stuff. That's not your stuff.
What if someone says to someone who's doing a surrogate without knowing why they're doing it, like, oh, I'm so jealous, like, your body's not going to change?
Why would you say something like that?
That's what the canned response is?
Yeah. I would just say, why would you say something like that? I'm surprised you would say something like that. Something like that. I mean,
Uh-huh.
that's a crazy thing. Look, what is that your business?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
that's,
But, like, also not know. Like, that is a good benefit.
but it's not the why people are doing that.
Correct. Well, you never know.
You never know. But also, why is it your business why
It's
they're
not.
doing it? It's not your business.
It is not. What's better, nanny or daycare?
Those are two great options, and some things work well for one family and some things work well for another family.
How do you handle the toxicity and judgment in the parenting space?
Confidence in your own decisions. I think if you make these decisions in a way that you are confident about, not that you're sure you're right, but that you were sure that you thought about the decision and made the decision that is right for you, that is the only way that you can feel good in the moment where someone is like, oh my God, why would you do that? When you might still feel bad in that moment, but the only thing we can guarantee is that we feel that we have made a decision that we have made the decision in the right way. And I think that's partly why I spend all this time telling people to, like, think through your decisions, think about them deliberately, because I think that's the only real antidote to the insanity of the internet.
Is my baby going to sleep without a noise machine?
Maybe. Like, do
In
they
his
sleep
life.
with one now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you probably can eventually take it away, but I wouldn't worry about it. Like, many adults sleep with a noise machine.
I sleep with a noise machine.
So I don't see, like, who cares?
Right, who cares?
Yeah.
And then last question, but I could literally sit here asking you questions all day, but I wouldn't do that to you. In IVF, how much does alcohol or drugs, let's say, impact the quality of sperm and eggs?
So it's sort of two different questions. So, we know that to the side of women, heavy drug use and alcohol use does impact fertility. And that, heavy alcohol use in the past may have some damaging effects. So that is a little hard to understand because we don't see the egg quality in, like, as quite fine timing. With sperm, it's much easier to understand the impacts of usage of various substances because sperm is, like, constantly being created. And we know that both heavy alcohol use and marijuana use can lead sperm to be slow. There can be too few sperm. They can have weird shaped heads, different problems. And so when people are trying to conceive, particularly if there's a sort of male concern about male factor, having men, like, cut down on, not drinking at all, but, like, sort of cut down on heavy drinking, cut down on or eliminate marijuana use during that period tends to be, like, one of the sort of, along with, like, make your testicles cooler, stuff like that.
Mhm. Is there data on why it's so much harder for people to get pregnant? It seems, right? Or is that just something that's happening in my like social
Yeah,
circle?
it's an interesting question how it, it is an interesting question, and it certainly is something that I get asked all the time, and I'm not sure we have a great sense of like how much more people are struggling with infertility age adjusted. So I mean, one of the things is just people are waiting until later to try to get pregnant, and fertility declines with age. It's like the most important determinant of your fertility is how old you are. And so as people are pushing later, of course there is more need for
But is
fertility
30
treatments.
late?
No, 30 is not late. No, 30 is not late,
Yeah.
obviously. And so I think there is then a question of, well, how much of it is this age thing and how much of it is something else, and sort of separating those is I think has been very challenging. You need like a lot of data because of course you could look at how fertility rates evolve and they've gone down a lot over time, but much of that is people deciding not to have kids. And
Right.
so then sort of if you take out the kind of deciding not to have kids, if you take out the age, is there really, more infertility in the data, or is it just something that you sort of feel because it's salient? I'm
Mhm.
not. I think
If
it's
you
hard
had to
know.
guess, would you say it has something to do more with birth control and things like that, or the food that we've been eating?
I would guess
If it has to be
if
one
I
of those.
had to be one of those two things, which I don't think it really is either, um, I don't think there's really good evidence that birth control impacts fertility. There's
Mhm.
really good evidence that food impacts fertility. There is evidence around obesity, something which we know has gone up over time.
Yeah.
And so, like, could that, to what extent does that contribute? I think there's some plausible story there.
Mhm. Interesting. Thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you.
on. Can
Thank
you
you for
leave us with
having
a
me.
piece of advice or quote, something that maybe has helped you in life? Could be about your relationship, could be about parenting.
So the best piece of advice I got from my pediatrician once was to try not to think about it. And I use that a lot because there are a lot of things that we obsess about that
Mhm.
perhaps we should not.
Mhm. Yeah. And that you won't probably remember it when your
That you
kids are 9 and
definitely won't
13.
remember it when your kids are 9 and 13. I promise you that the things that you are worried about now, you will not remember then. You will be worried about other things, but it will not be those things.
What is it? Bigger kids, bigger
Bigger kids, bigger
problems.
problems. Yeah.
Where can everyone find you, follow you, read all of your amazing books? And
So parentdata.org is the best place to find me, or on Instagram at Prof. Emily Oster.
cool. Thank you.
Thank you.